Don't forget Obi-Wan Kenobi's advice that what is true depends on a certain point of view. A lot of the complaints I hear about the sequel Star Wars trilogy almost entirely rest upon Rey. Like easily 80 to 85% are about her. And it all kind of seems to stem from an idea that she's not properly replicating the Luke Skywalker archetype. I propose that she was never Luke Skywalker's replacement. I don't even think it's correct to view The Force Awakens as a soft reboot, as many people call it. To me, it was a proof of concept film. It was Lucasfilm without George Lucas at the helm, under Disney's umbrella, just making a movie to prove that they can actually make a generic Star Wars movie without having Lucas around. Because of the length of time, in order for it to be a continuation of the story, the original characters are obviously going to be older, so you're going to need some new people. And because of the way the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy already worked, there already is this kind of multi-generational vibe going on. So we have our new generation of characters. But because of people thinking of it as a soft reboot, I think there is too much of people trying to figure out who of the new cast is supposed to be the analog to the old cast. And in many ways, they're their own characters. A few of them are heirs to prior generations, and whose heir to whom is not necessarily dependent upon bloodline. Kylo Ren / Ben Kenobi is much more Leia's child than Han's child, as he is both heavily touched with the use of the Force through the bloodline of his grandfather, but he also has political leanings and is embedded in the heart of power for the First Order, as opposed to being a ne'er-do-well hanging off in the underworld off on the sidelines like Han, just maybe occasionally dipping his toes in because they request him. Han's heir is Rey. Rey is not Luke's heir. Rey is basically Han Solo as a woman with Force powers. An arrogant, cocky, but talented hotshot from an orphaned background, as we've now learned post-Solo. Post-Solo. She's inherited all of his equipment. She's got the Falcon. She even has Chewbacca. Yes, she did get to use Luke's lightsaber briefly, but hey, so did Han. She held on to it a bit longer, but in doing so, she ended up getting the damn thing broken. If she had never picked up that lightsaber, it'd still just be sitting there in the grass. Not destroyed. And who knows what kind of weapon she'll end up having for episode 9. Maybe she'll get like a double-bladed green lightsaber, Darth Maul style, or something kooky. Who knows? That'd be fine. Star Wars has already given us precedent for a wide variety of lightsaber designs. She doesn't have to have a perfect replication of what Luke already had. And she doesn't have to be Luke. She doesn't have to follow the hero's journey. That's not her role. She might not even be the main character. Finn might actually be the hero of the sequel trilogy. And while his story is radically different from the classical hero's journey, he has much more of a hero's journey going on, just of a different sort, since he started off as a bad guy troop, throwing down his helmet and throwing down the sword and going off to go join the good guys, sort of a thing, and learning to overcome his cowardice. In some ways, Finn kind of shows what could have been done with Jar Jar. In some ways, I kind of feel George Lucas is a little cowardly and dialing Jar Jar back so much in episodes 2 and 3, because as a reaction to the fan outrage, quote unquote, over episode 1. But in doing so, we never got an arc for Jar Jar. He was just always a bumbling idiot who, in the end, became a critical pawn in Palpatine's plan to take power. We never got Jar Jar to grow up and overcome his inabilities and learn to master himself and become a bit more of a serious character. It wasn't even an option because Lucas caved and pulled back. But we're kind of getting that with Finn, because Finn is, in many ways, a little bit of a bumbling, cowardly comedy relief character, especially at the very beginning. But over the course of episode 8, he gets his nerve and gets his spine up. You know, getting to face Phasma again seems like a little bit of a throwaway scene, but it gave him more of a definitive victory over her than the silly slapstick we're going to throw in her trash compactor scene in The Force Awakens was. And Rey being an orphan without a last name, you know, because of... There's some things about the movie Solo that I think kind of help strengthen the backbone of all the Disney-era Star Wars movies. Little subtle things. The dice might be the most ham-fisted, but it has a very solid, grounded feel to it. It feels like it's taking place in the Star Wars universe. There's moments where Rogue One felt a little random and like they're just making up planets where there already were established worlds they could have used. And Solo instead used worlds that we're at least aware of in the fan consciousness. Places like Kessel and Corellia and whatnot. But they do, in dialogue, name drop places from Rogue One like Scarif, which like it is a subtle way of helping to strengthen the bedrock upon which these new post-George Lucas Star Wars movies sit upon. The fact that Solo flopped should have been predicted by the people at Lucasfilm and Disney going in. They knew what their budget was. They knew how much they had to increase that budget. We've still never actually ever seen what the revised post-reshoot budget for that movie was. They had a fairly minimalistic marketing campaign, probably because they're trying to save a few bucks, but they could have pushed a few things about that movie a bit differently. It could have been sold to people better. But hey, now we're stuck with the aftermath of it. There's plot lines that might be forever left dangling. Like, we might not ever find out what's up with Kira and Darth Maul, and that's sad. Kira, I think, is rather quickly grown on me as being one of the best female characters in Star Wars, and being one of the best female villains I've seen in a while, period. And I view her as having been a villain character throughout the entire movie, even the very beginning. She cares about Han, but she doesn't really want to go with him throughout the whole thing. It's better for Han to be a fantasy for her. Anyway, I get there's not that much more to say about all that. Just Rey is not Luke, and she does not have to fulfill Luke's qualifications. She does not have to walk Luke's path. The superficial similarity of being raised on a desert planet and having the Force is there, but most of her other characteristics, I actually tend to see more of Han in her. And because of Han's background as established in the Solo movie, it kind of makes more sense that both Han and Chewie took to her so fast. Han saw a little bit of himself in her. The daughter he never had, sort of a thing. And it might also explain, like her, because she sensed that back from him, especially if she's got innate Force talents, even if they weren't active when she first met him, they would still be latent. And so she would still sense this bond between them, kind of a thing. So that also kind of explains why she's a little hung up about his death afterwards, even though she didn't really know him all that long. In the end, they're just movies. And I can't believe he just sat through all that.